So with that, I'd like to welcome your first speaker, producer Aron Warner.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, Ben. This was an amazing experience that I never expected to be on for 6 years, but I was and really appreciate it, and met lifelong friends and had an amazing experience working in China. I gotta say, if we had done this panel maybe a week ago, I don't think I would have felt as maybe enthusiastic about doing it, even though I'm super happy to see my friends. But now that the film has been on Netflix, I see what I always believed to be true about this movie, is that it will resonate with a lot of people, no matter where you're from, who've had similar experiences and see the world around them through a similar light. So I knew that what Chris was doing was the right thing, and I'm really glad I bet on him and bet on this team. And I got to say, this panel are the superstars of the world of animation, and they're the people who truly, on their backs. I mean, if it weren't for Olivier and RanJan, we wouldn't have had a pipeline at all in China. We've had nothing. And we walked into an empty office building, and 6 months later we're up and running ish, and that is on those guys. So anyway, enough about me. I'll hand it off to the Chris Appelhans, who is truly an incredible human being and the best director I've ever worked with. So go for it.
Oh, thank you. This is recorded, right? Because I'm going to keep that little clip.
You already know. I've already
going to use it. Can use it against you in the future.
I've already said it.
Hi guys, thanks for coming, and if this is recorded, thanks for watching. I'm going to keep it really short because we only have so much time, and I want these guys to get to share all their work with you. So I have very personal inspiration for making this film and personal motivations for going on all this time. If you're curious about that, I've done a couple of interviews like on the Draftsman podcast. There's one coming out on Cartoon Brew. I'm going to skip all that for now so we can get on to the panel. I do want to say two things really quick. One is thanks to Ben. Ben's been my friend now for, oh my God, 22 years, because we're so old. And Ben was the first person to invite me to go to China. It was Ben and his mom, whose relationship was sort of the inspiration for Din and his mom. There was a lot of yelling as well in both situations. And I would never have really traveled to China or really start to ever understood the country without being his friend first. So Benny, thanks. I hope you're proud. And then to the panelists, they're going to talk to you guys a lot about the creative side of this today, which is really fun. What they're not going to talk about, and this echoes what Aron said, is outside of the creative, the extent to which everybody on this panel gave, I mean, literally 300% of what I ask of them. And that is the only way that this film was possible. It has no business. If you guys don't know, it's about a third or a fourth of the budget of one of those big Disney or Pixar movies. So just think about that. That's $80 million. And the fact that our film can hold our own and find this big audience and mean something to so many people in the world is literally just because of the extra dedication of the people on this panel and the teams that they built. So thank you to those guys, and let's just have fun talking about the making of it, talking about the creative side. But I just want to acknowledge how amazing they all were as pros who gave so much to the movie. So that's it for me for now. I'll probably interrupt and make fun of them as they talk, but let's go to whoever's going to talk first. I think it's Joshi, right, Ben?
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for showing up. This is really exciting to finally have a chance to sort of show and talk about the process and all the work and everything. It was a long time coming. For me, it was a super exciting opportunity. I'd only ever worked at major studios before. And when I met with Chris and Aron, they were putting a really small team together here in LA for pre-production, and it was very different from what I was used to in terms of the scope and the infrastructure and the studio system. And what was so exciting for me was just, it was a very exciting opportunity to really put your fingerprints on something. We didn't have as much executive interference or executive involvement. And it really just allowed us to just kind of plow forward and just put ourselves into this. And so even before it came out, it was definitely like the thing I was most proud of, just because I knew how much work we put in. And I saw, almost directly, all the stuff, each phase of production, the storyboards to the art team to then, Wira and Olivier and RanJan picking the things up, and translating into the CG. Everything was just really elevated at each level, and really stayed true to, I think, what Chris was hoping to accomplish, but also just elevating it every step of the way. So I'm just super, super proud to be a part of this. So I have a couple things to show everybody. Is that showing up? Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
So when we first started the storyboard process, obviously Long was a very unique character to kind of bring to light. I think there's obvious, there's inherent similarities, I think, story-wise between our story and Disney's Aladdin. We're using a lot of the similar source material, the same story. And one of the things Chris was really adamant about was, how our dragon, our sort of genie, is just inherently different than the genie from Aladdin that everybody knows. He's a lot more smug, he's arrogant, he's royalty, he's sort of a curmudgeon. He's not really your best friend. And it was such a unique, fun character. And what we really wanted to try to do was figure out how can we showcase that in the design, in the physicality of him. And this was one of the first things I really tried to explore in the boards, was kind of bringing his personality to life, and trying to find ways with the physicality and using that as a device to separate ourselves from the Disney Aladdin, the Disney genie, who was a little more about like magic and everything was like, I can poof this and I can poof this. We wanted to try to find something a little more unique. So what we started to discover was that there was a lot to be had with Long's the shape of him, the physicality of him. And it started to find its way into the boards in really fun and exciting ways in terms of staging, shape language, posing, using sort of the magical nature of Long, sort of coming in from different sides of the screen, swooping around, flying, of course. And these were just some really early things we started to notice in the boards. How we could sort of use the shape language to help emphasize his emotion by creating more complicated shapes, the more sort of angry or frustrated he got. Using, all the body and the tail and the head and everything as framing devices, which was really fun. And you'll see some of that in some of these boards later. And here was just a few examples, right? Just thinking out loud in terms like, just all these cool things you can do that a creature like that, a character like that with this long body and these fun limbs and tail, and obviously does have magic, but just all the fun stuff you can do and create.
Hey, Joshy, I just want to add, this was something that Josh figured out really early. If you go back to 2 panels, that Long was basically his own composition, and he's such a complicated creature with all the different parts. The body can take any shape, the weird arms that come out of different places, that if you don't compose him, if you don't almost treat him like literally like his own mini composition, you have no idea where to look. And so Josh makes it look so easy, but in all these drawings there are 100 little decisions about leading lines and gesture and flow and negative shapes so that your eye goes to the right spot. And I think credit to Josh almost as a designer as much as a board artist for figuring that out.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And so here you can see some of those. These are some poses I pulled out from the boards where you can start to see some of those things in action. One of the things I discovered really quickly was like the farther away his head got from his shoulders, it was really hard to kind of understand what his expression was as a quick read. And so we started doing this thing where we would loop we kind of loop the neck back down kind of into the shoulders, but still being able to use the neck as an interesting shape, and even going as far as like having this back arm here, on the other side of his body, which technically isn't even connected, but just comes out from the back, from behind him, from the silhouette. And I remember Wira did a really early test doing that, where he had one pose and then the arm popped kind of behind his head and it wasn't connected to his body. And we showed it to a few people and nobody noticed. And I just remember going like, all right, I think we can do this. I think we can make it work. And then just really like exploring like, okay, when he's exhausted, how do you do that? Oh, he can rest, he can use, instead of resting on his knees like a human would, he can make, a fun little shape with his body and sort of rest on those little, lumps and parts of his body. using fun figure eight kind of images. How does he puff his chest out? Well, we still have the whole rest of that neck. So it was like finding some fun ways that even give you even a more kind of emphasis. I think this next page, yeah, is sort of him with Din, and then ultimately even just him with himself, like Chris was saying. Those were some really, actually they weren't that early, but those bottom row is sort of some marketing kind of poses we started putting together. And this was like, those were definitely like after we had done like, 5,000 drawings of him or 10,000 drawings of him to like, okay, now we understood like, okay, this makes sense and this is appealing or this isn't appealing. You see the legs here. Chris, do you want to talk about the legs at all, or should we just skip over that?
Let's just say that we're very happy we made the legs work, because we really were terrified that we wouldn't for many, many, many months. And between Josh and Olivier and our animation and rigging team, I can't remember, I'm sure Wira was involved too. It was a really interesting challenge to have them there and yet not there, because it can get real wacky looking pretty easily.
Yeah, I remember, Chris, you came to me at one point and you were like, I think we have to have the feet, we're gonna have the legs. And you were like, can you figure out how to make it work? And I was like, no. I've drawn 10,000 times. I've never drawn legs. Like, I don't know. Give me another 2 years and I'll figure it out. But I think that, there was a couple, I think, really organic moments where they kind of came into play. And I think the animation team did a really great job of incorporating it into sort of, what we had already kind of, figured out with Long in terms of posing and all that kind of stuff. And I think and then these were just, I'll probably upload, I have a pitch of this that I did of this sequence, which was the flight home after the birthday party. I'll probably end up putting this one on Vimeo. I have some other ones I'm going to show instead that were a little different or weren't in the movie. But this, just in the sense of pulling out a few compositions that I really liked. And just, again, just like capitalizing on Long and the body, having some really fun, like over the shoulder, like under the heads, using his body. I remember this was in this scene, Long is sort of spinning a little bit of a lie and essentially twisting himself in knots. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to actually see that. And he's sort of, as he's trying to convince Din that he is this really powerful old emperor, and this is why you don't know about him, that he actually makes a little shape in his body and then shooting through that. Din on Long's body while Long's head is coming in over him, and just really fun ways of there's just so much real estate with Long to compose. So with all that in mind, I'm going to show, let me stop here for a sec, one of the earlier versions of Long and Din in the apartment. Long coming out of the teapot and Din sort of playing catch up a little bit after, well, spoiler alert, hopefully everybody's seen it, after having sort of inadvertently wished for Kung Fu, and Din's trying to play catch up here in terms of what just happened and what this teapot is and what Long is. And what he's gotten himself into here. So you'll see, for those of you who've seen the movie, there's a handful of similarities here that you'll see, but I also think this was one instance where after all that stuff we learned with Long, I really tried to again, we didn't want to do the Aladdin genie. We really wanted to do like, how is Long different? And we tried to embrace the physicality of him here. So this is the night after Din had stumbled upon the teapot, got chased by the goons, backed into an alleyway, inadvertently wished he could knew Kung Fu, beat them up, ran home in a hazy, dizzying state, not sure if this was real or not, went to sleep. Next morning he woke up, mom leaves, and then Din is alone with the teapot. So we see the window, he comes by, shuts the curtain, TV, turns it off, blinds, shuts the blinds, runs by, sees the little cat toy, turns it around, runs off, locks the door, puts the chain on, and then and he's sitting all alone in the apartment with only the teapot. Hello, dragon thingy? There's no response. You in there? Then grabs it, picks it up, and he starts examining it. And he grabs the lid, and as he goes to open it, he pulls it off, and then giant eyeball. Din reacts. Long reacts. Din throws the teapot, scared. We hear Long inside flipping around. Din grabs the teapot, and Long's eye still spins around like a little slot machine, and settles down. Din looks in. Whoa, looks cramped in there. How observant of you, O great master. Now, summon me out of this wretched teapot. Huh? Why don't you just come out? You must officially summon me. There are ancient rules and protocols that we must abide by. Okay, I'll summon you. Puts the teapot down. What was your name again? My name is Long. Whoa, how long is it? No, Longzu, the great and powerful wish dragon. Okay, I got it. Longzu, yeah, powerful, good, okay. Whew, I'll summon you. Are you summoning? I, Din, son of Jin Li, owner of this magical teapot and master of dragons, call upon the services of the great and powerful Longzu, magical wish dragon, to come forth. And Long's like, oh, for heaven's sake, to come forth and assist me. And Long just takes matters into his own hands. Bursts out of the teapot, giant magical smoke. His whole body comes out. My computer freezes, and then we keep going. Whoa, we see Long, big reveal. Ah, very good, great master. Now, shall we proceed with your next two? We see Long's, Din's hands come in, pulls him down. Oof. Hey, what did you do to me? Why do I know Kung Fu? Huh? Ah, well, I did my job. You wished you could fight? I made you a Kung Fu master. He's sort of grooming himself after that spinning in the teapot. I didn't wish for, and Din's remembering the night before when he wished for Kung Fu in the alleyway. Wait a minute, hey, that's not fair. Well, you said the wish word. Oh, great, so just because I said I wish, now I'm stuck with Kung Fu powers? Oh, cool. Yes, it's all very wow and very cool. But now, we're off to a splendid start. He makes this cool shape with his body. One wish down, his body ducks away. We reveal Din. 2 more to go. Oh, this is great. We could be done by lunch. All right, well, I'm happy to recommend the usuals. And Long just keeps badgering about the wishes. Longer legs, perhaps? Huh? Lifts Din up into the air. Or pile of gold. Sends him sliding down his body. Or perhaps an army of terracotta warriors. And Long's flying alongside. As Din rides along his body, flung into the air, Long catches him on the other side, or perhaps a temple built in your likeness. Squish, grabs his face. Din pushes him off. Stop rushing me. Oh, how could I forget? The all-time favorite wish. Long unravels Din. Whoa, comes back in. I can allow you to speak with a loved one on the other side of China. Long's body comes in. His little tail pops up way in the distance. Hi, I'm a loved one, but I'm way far away on the other side of China, and there's no way you can talk to me because there doesn't exist anything that allows you to do that right now. And he's just talking. It's just like, oh, you mean like cell phones? Huh? What? Din grabs in his pocket, pulls out his cell phone. What in the world? Boop, 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 boop. Starts ringing. Scares Long. What dark magic is this? Huh? Oh, it's just my mom. Opens up the phone. Hello, mother. Huh? Long looks up. Din, I told you to go to school. Why aren't you at school? Huh? And Long reacts. He's like, what is going on here? And Din, I'm walking into school right now, mother. Oh, hi, Principal Wong. Say hello to my mother, Principal Wong. Hello, Din's mother? All right, Mom, gotta go learn. Bye. Hangs up the phone. Not learning today. What in the world? Long grabs the phone out of his hands. Where's the tiny orchestra? How do they all fit in this tiny metal box? And then Din's back on track. Yeah, 2 wishes. Wow. And I can wish for anything I want? Gets excited. We see Long playing with the phone. Din pops in. I know what I want. Huh? Oh, a wish? Yes, a wish. Come on, get in. Fantastic. Let's go. And he dives towards screen, and then they're off.
Yay. Lovely, Joshy. So good.
There you have it. So I think you can see really trying to use Long's physicality in terms of like, instead of with the wishes going like, I give you this and I give you this and I give you that, even though I actually think that's what we did in the end. We really were trying to find ways to make him more unique in his own right, and take advantage of the cool design and the shape, and play with that. So
last thing I'll say about Josh is there are pretty much two categories of people in the world: people who are still learning how to draw, and people who realize how good Josh's drawings are. It took me a while to figure it out because they're so deceptively good, and they're so well designed and elegant and expressive. So it's pretty neat to have somebody who's as funny, but also just a natural in many ways designer of great poses to give your storyboards not just acting choices, but like really strong visual, memorable, character-driven acting choices that are great poses. So that's all the compliments I'm going to give you, Josh.
Please Don't Stroke is already over.
Yeah, I know. It's going to overheat right now.
I second that. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, Chris and Aron really let me go wild. I think Chris had a really great grasp of the story, and we were really able to just, get in there and really make the moments as entertaining as they could be, because they all had a very specific purpose, and they were all building towards, the overall story and arcs that.
And I also, Josh was a really good trooper in that literally for 2 years after he was off the show officially, as in no one was paying him, Olivier and I would still just call him all the time, be like, hey, can you look at this shot? What's wrong with the pose? What do you think? And it was just like the Josh approval. Like if we could get that stamp, we knew we had something good. And when Josh is not super easy to please. So when we'd send him stuff and he was like, I love it, we're like, okay, we got this character. Many late night WeChat calls.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about it for me. And I believe I'm handing it over to our incredible production designer, Mr. Arthur Fong.
Party.
Hello.
Yeah.
That was amazing, Josh. And now get ready for the really sort of boring philosophy part of the movie. I'm actually really a little bummed that Shelley Wong, our other production designer, who took a lot of my sort of confusing philosophy for the movie and translated it into the beautiful moving image you see on screen. And also, really thankful for Aron and Chris to sort of give me this opportunity to just kind of really jump right away to production designer when I have no business to production design. Only after working like a few years at DreamWorks, but I really thankful they trusted me to just do my wild and crazy things on this movie. So, but yeah, let's get started. So I'll just kind of jump and I'll just kind of keep it within like environments and world building, since Josh did a really great job with the like long sort of design and his like attitude and poses. And then I know Wira and Olivier will also get into the deeper sort of like fun character stuff. So I'll keep it with just the world of Shanghai. So let me share my screen, or the world of Wish Dragon and Shanghai. Okay. All right. So in the script, before there were any images other than Chris's little doodle of Din and Long, the story had a lot of really great opportunities to kind of segregate the class of like working middle class and sort of the wealth and the growing wealth of Shanghai. And that idea translated in, well, at least I tried translating through all the images and to put as much visual comparison of those classes in the movie. So images like this really help sort of create this, just like the world that like Din's about to enter, where he kind of comes from, and like a literal door he's about to walk through into this this new land of either opportunities or heartbreaks, and a lot of it's like this a child who's about to basically grow up. And in the world of Shanghai, a lot of times animation, we are building everything from scratch, but Shanghai itself was at that time, 2015, was already such a great playground to set the movie in. And we always really try to capture this ongoing sort of city where you would see, it was always so amazing to see kind of in one shot, you would see something like really this old temple set dressed next to this like work in progress building next to a finished kind of skyscraper, and kind of keeping those visual ideas and these references really helped kind of have us sort of set dress the movie. So you're always sort of have this feeling of old and new, rich and poor. So, and this is crazy. We're walking around Shanghai, and I know Chris had mentioned his experience in Xiamen too, and most of the places in China, you could just turn a corner in like an old neighborhood, and right away you're just towered over by these, new buildings that probably took them 3 months to build. But it was so charming. It was so beautiful to just see. It's hard to kind of see it sometimes in like the suburb in California. You don't really see kind of the history. In like, again, in one view, you're able to see just layers and layers of history in this in Shanghai. So again, we kind of used these references as just the really amazing references to use throughout the movie. Anyways, so I just realized this is here. So earlier on, I also did this is just like really early kind of color philosophies for the movie. And Shelley, I'm not going to go too much into color because she was our color mad scientist that kind of did this amazing color script, which I might show a little bit at the end. But hopefully she will do a talk at some point in a different video or to explain all of that. But we knew that because we were coming from like a working class neighborhood, what are like things we could do to really brighten it and make it feel warm and inviting, and then separating that from the kind of gold glass and chrome colors and neon colors of the wealthy part of the neighborhood. So these are just kind of ideas to keep in mind when we were building and designing the movies. And a lot of our artists in LA, April, Liu, and Vince Lau, like I'd always kind of draw back to these things whenever we were designing either for Din's neighborhood or for Lena's neighborhood. And these are drawings from April. She always also had a really great charm and kind of making things feel really handmade and chunky. But again, it's the idea of making sure wherever we can to kind of sprinkle this just juxtaposition that we always find in Shanghai. So, and again, these are images that you just see, someone collecting recycled cans walking by a Ferrari, or a demolished neighborhood just kind of towered over by these newer buildings in the distance. So these are again really just kind of rules and visual rules for us to kind of draw back to each time we maybe feel like a neighborhood or a shot doesn't feel quite right. And then Vince helped me do kind of make sure we have enough of these construction sort of equipments and construction sites throughout the film. Again, a lot of it is reference from all those beautiful references we saw and we took from Shanghai. And it's really interesting, like when you start scattering some of these cranes and the green tarps, immediately it does feel like a city that is still work in progress. There's still a city that is growing so quickly.
Yeah, Arthur, I think it was something that we commented on the team in China. These guys had done all this pre-production work in LA for 2 years. And then we moved to China, and obviously a lot of our crew was from China. We're living in Xiamen, which is another city that's rapidly changing. But we would walk around the city that we lived in and be like, oh my gosh, it's our movie right here, which is amazing. Like down to the look of the security gate around the construction site. We're like, how did Arthur and Vince and April in LA like design the world that we were about to live in 2 years later? So pretty awesome that they got so close to the mark.
And we'd also have experiences like the first image that Arthur showed of the torn down Shukumen and Din on top of the stairs. Those were from photographs that we took that were taken in Shanghai, and I was there with Sophie, who was one of our amazing producers, executive producers, and she said, that this giant mall we're in was from that photograph 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh shit, it was crazy. In 2 years,
It's all gone.
Are you
all
serious?
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was, and it's the like fanciest, biggest mall there.
Yeah. And we tried to go back to the original Shikumen neighborhood, and it was gone. So we went and found a new one the year after. And then the last trip we made to Shanghai, maybe 9 months later, we tried to go to that place, and it was gone. So we had to go find a third place, and they're probably almost all gone by now. So it's kind of nice that we could capture it on film.
I mean, I know. I mean, that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. But when we were there was this feeling of that it was fleeting, and
Yeah.
I think we may have talked about it at that time when we were visiting, not knowing how long these places would last. It's it's heartbreaking though. It's kind of heartbreaking to think about it.
It was weird too, because like I don't know if you remember, Aaron or Arthur, that trip with Rad. There was this. It was like a ghost story. Like we were in this Shikumen. It was all demolished, but there was one old dude who was still living in his one apartment, but it had no roof, and he had this little stove in his bed, and we just caught a glimpse of him. And at that time, there was no, the Peepa God character in the movie, the crazy old guy who gives in the teapot. We hadn't invented him yet. And later we realized for story reasons that we needed that character. And Rad and I both instantly thought of that old guy who just kind of appeared for a second in his little apartment and then was gone. And so it's a very interesting kind of alignment of research and happenstance, and also just it is a really remarkable place, and it was a remarkable moment in history that we were drawing from. So it just had cool shit all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this kind of goes back to why this movie, to all of us working on it, is so meaningful, because it is the things that are fleeting from us, like the Shikumens that maybe those may never experience to actually walk into or see, now exists on Netflix. But man, that's crazy to think about. You threw me off. I don't know what to.
Sorry.
I don't know where I'm at. I don't know where I'm at now. Okay. Speaking of Shikumens, so there, I think the next few slides are some images that April helped me with. Again, it's a place that feels a little chaotic, but we made sure there are just things you add, like prop set dressing and stuff, that makes the place feel alive, even though it is a little unorganized. So we always knew that plants and fruits and vegetables and those kind of things really make a place, any sort of neighborhood, feel inviting and open. And it also feels like there's a earlier on, I also referenced like Beauty and the Beast in the very beginning, when Belle like kind of walks through the town. The idea of, in these places, just the storefront, the doors and the windows are right at the sidewalk. And with these doors and windows open, it does give you the sense of like an invitation, because you don't need to walk across a driveway or like, dial a number through a gate in order to get to somebody's house. And this kind of culture that in the Shikumen area, where every neighbor is kind of just in each other's lives, was really beautiful to experience. And so you can kind of notice that in the Shikumen area, we always had that, where doors is just right on the sidewalks, and windows and those places it was always open and inviting for people. So this is an image shown from April, where we kind of started taking very specific also architecture we found in Shanghai, and not just like hutongs in Beijing or other kind of architectures in China. But for Shanghai specifically, they had a lot of these European influences because they were a port city in the early 1900s, and throughout the years, when the government kind of came in and kind of allowed people to live in there, each person kind of took a spot, and there's just really nice sort of like layerings of life that they continue to add on to these buildings. And again, more of the props to consider when you're trying to add in hints of the feeling of lived in. So fruits and bicycle, like even just adding a little bicycle, like a child's bicycle, will really made the neighborhood kind of feel like a place where there's family and kids. So with all that in mind, we created some paintings that sort of tried to use that philosophy. So a lot of warm colors and pops of candy colors in this neighborhood. This is done by April. She did this on her first pass, her first assignment on Din's apartment, and we're like, damn, this is it. It's so good. And also there's definitely a benefit to having someone like April, who's Asian American, but her family's from China and she's really close to them. So there's just tons of detail that are really, really things that we see when we grew up. So like, if anyone goes to like 99 Ranch Market in Alhambra, there's like these plastic stools are just everywhere. But stuff that it's like it's not hard. It's just a little harder to like go and research these things versus growing up and seeing that all around you, like every day in your life. And this painting is done by Helen Chen. Again, kind of really taking all that philosophy and making the Shikumin neighborhood that Din and Lena grew up in very, very lived in and warm.
Hey, Artie, can you point out the tarp? This tarp is in anywhere you go in China. If any of you guys have ever lived there, born in mainland China, you know this tarp. I don't know, it was like the only tarp ever sold for like 50 years. So that little stripy thing, you see it literally to this day. You cannot turn a corner without seeing that somewhere.
Yes.
And those are the things that like, our crew, they just knew it. They dropped it in there, and then the audience in China appreciated it. So
I would love to know why they chose this color.
Yeah.
Someday. And then this is just a beat painting where again these continuously like kind of layering the foreground where Din's at, but also surrounding him with this new world, this like upscale world that he's about to enter. And as we get into Lena's world, her neighborhood, her kind of lifestyle, the colors start to become more pastel-y, more muted. We soaked a lot of the kind of warm and inviting colors away. So even in her world, people wearing kind of classier suits and dresses and set dressing it with gold. But I know, again, Shelley, she'll do a better job, not on this talk, but somewhere else, that every time we enter her sort of world, she does kind of strip away all those colors, and even when it's gold, it's not really like a very nice like saturated gold. It's a little more pale, and get more examples of the boxes of gifts, very pastel-y. But it was great because when I saw this on screen, it really, these philosophy did translate through and really did give you the sense of like Din has entered somewhere that he's not used to, and at that time in the movie, you're kind of, for us as an audience, we're kind of curious whether or not he wants that. And so here's another design, the kitchen design done by April. And even, the flashback scene, this is just an earlier concept that I'd done. I know in the color script, Shelley had a more deeper meaning to why she used those colors, but earlier it was the same idea where like, if we were to go like kind of gold, it would be pale and less saturated. And then we also did, again, going back to the visual comparison of staging sort of, Lena, the self that she puts in public and who she truly is. This painting by Helen, and also paintings done by all the rest of the team. Every time we get a chance to use that visual comparison, it was always, we always took it. So, and also callbacks like this was also just fun representations we can do in the meantime. Again, these are all, and Chris had said this to me many times in our time, like working together on Wish Dragon, was, each department sort of serves the next, and him being at the top, our director, he does whatever he can to be very clear to the next department's story, and then story to art, and then art to modeling. So we really just worked really hard to clarify just the ideas that we had, and then pass that on to the next department. And again, so more examples of ideas where where Lena's standing, she's kind of surrounded in her world, and Din sort of in his. This is a very depressing painting done by April. And I'll go a little bit into the characters, and this will be a really kind of nice flow into what Wira will talk about. But April also really helped with just like the color palette and our generic system and characters. And again, I'm not sure, Shelley's not here to kind of explain how she translated this into, real CG and 3D. But again, these templates were really good for us at the beginning to have. And then Chris always had this really, also he had this great philosophy that, deep down, we're all kind of the same people, whether or not you, whatever financial status you are. So it was really a way to kind of take characters that we knew from the neighborhood and also dress them up. And they're basically the same people, but in just kind of fancy clothes.
Which is a really interesting part of the last 25 years of China, or maybe 30 years, is 30 years ago, everybody's on the same level, and then suddenly there's huge transformations of people's status, quote unquote, and lifestyle. And there were many grandmas, living in mansions in Shanghai that grew up with grandmas who were still living in the Shikumen 30 years later. So I think it's a very unique situation in China, the speed of transformation from a kind of communal situation where everybody was sort of on a similar status level to suddenly this huge spectrum. And it felt like we could hint at that a little bit, which is really interesting.
And save money.
And save money mostly.
Because we didn't have money. And all right, so finally, I'll end with this, and I won't get too much into it, but I just want to really showcase what Shelley did on the project when she first came on, and it really was a very, very hefty assignment that in 2 years I did not do. I know every few weeks Chris will ask, "Where's the color script? Have you worked on the color script? How's the color script coming along?" And just did not have time. And so thankful Shelley came and saved my ass. Excuse me, sorry. But by then too, it was great because we did have a lot of the, several versions of the Atomatic down already, and so she had a lot to pick from and really finalize, which I think why her color script is more accurate to the final film.
Are you showing it? Because I'm only seeing the black screen.
Oh, you're not. Oh, sorry.
Am I the only one? Maybe not. Oh, there you go.
Let me. Here we go. That's probably.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, it's gone again. Now it's gone.
Is it gone, you guys?
Yeah.
Let me just. Maybe I'll do this. You guys see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
I won't go full screen then. So yeah, she and because she knew she and I like overlapped a little bit when we were in LA just for a few months, and she knew that she was about to take this entire project over to China, and she did a great job with actually doing a lot of thinking and reasoning for kind of why to use certain colors and tones in certain parts of the movie. And what's impressive was I don't have it with me, but she did a Chinese version of this where she translated all her thoughts into Chinese, and I'm sure that was extremely useful, taking that over to Shaman and working it with the team there. So I'm just gonna kind of scroll through a little bit, kind of quickly. She kind of just took a lot of the paintings that we've all seen from like Helen, April, and kind of tied it all together, giving it all a reason why skylight is a certain way, and or why certain lighting is used in specific moments. Really just like a genius, in my opinion.
I think she also did a pretty amazing job of, the movie reuses a lot of locations. We're in the Shikumen, we're in sort of Lena's world, and then we're in some construction sites and a bit of the city. But I think Shelley did an amazing job in conceiving that let's use different times of day, let's use different qualities of light, so that those sequences, even though they're in the same place they might have been, feel new to the movie. It doesn't feel like, oh, back here again, back in the such and such room. So I think it does a great job of disguising the limitations we had in terms of how many sets and locations we could build. Super
Yeah.
smart.
Hey, Shelly tried using my palette. How come you changed it, Chris? Changed it a little bit.
We looked at, well, it's a long story.
Just kidding. Anyways, beautiful movie, beautiful team. Really, I mean, our small sort of art department here in pre-production, April and Vince, we're all just kind of newbies. And again, super thankful for Chris and Aron to give us a chance to just kind of be ourselves and learn on the job, which I'm sure was really frustrating at times. But hey, we're all alive. No one died, so
We made it.
we made it. Anyway, so I'll pass this on to.
So I was on this. I felt very fortunate because I was on this from, I want to say, the inception of the film, before it was even sold as a treatment. I got to brainstorm a lot of stuff with Chris, and we were just kind of bounce ideas off of me, and I was sort of the early cultural consultant in a way. And but but I was very lucky, like I said, to be part of the story process in the very beginning. And then once it got picked up, we weren't sure if it was going to get picked up, and I was amazed because one day Chris called me, he was like, hey, I'm gonna assemble a team, and that's pretty much how I got onto the film. But yeah, with that, I just want to. This is a very early concept of the goons. They changed a lot, but I think Pockets was pretty close from early on. So
Wasn't it your idea to have him keep his hands in his pockets? I think it was.
Yeah, it was. So I was very heavy into martial arts. I wanted to put that influence in there. Once Chris told me, like, oh, we're gonna have martial arts in this film, I was like, oh, it's on. I'm gonna make sure to put the coolest martial arts villain in there. All my wushu experience and taekwondo experience. So I really wanted I wanted to see a guy who would be all kicks, nothing else. And then they took the idea and ran with it and made it even cooler and had him only use his hands at very specific times. So we early on, we also discussed him being sort of like a really lanky, spidery character. So, all right. Okay, so here's some really early long exploration sketches. I think these are done, Chris, these might have been done at your house even before we had a proper studio. And I think Arthur may have just started around that time, but here I was just playing around with head shapes and facial hair. And when we were talking about how, like, I think at the beginning, we didn't know how old Long was going to be. We knew that he was going to be a curmudgeon and he was going to be grumpy. So I kind of explored some like older versions and some younger, more suave versions, but also still very much that traditional dragon. You know, we were trying to think about how regal are we going to make this guy? You know, how celestial is he going to be? So, you know, the bottom one's got crazy hair and antlers and things like that. Some more ideas. There's a much younger one. And this one is getting a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think this was the one where I was first like, oh yeah, I think we're onto something when you showed me this one.
Yeah, I think the boxy muzzle started to resonate, and I think kind of the hair shape and the shorter baton horns, and then sort of Rad, Arthur, and a bunch of other awesome artists took it and just made it they just pushed it and made it cooler. So here's some other early explorations of like possible poses. I was thinking about sort of the infinity thing and trying to tackle, like Chris said, like how would we approach how to frame the dragon, you know, and kind of different poses that the dragon could do, you know, like him bowing and things like that. Another sort of exploration. And with this one, I was kind of playing around with the feet, and this is before we figured out the feet. It was basically two sets of hands, two sets of arms, And I think Josh really, when Josh took it over, it became a lot better and a lot less confusing. But this was kind of like me trying to figure out like, oh, could he use his feet and his arms, you know? But I think ultimately it was just a bit much. So this was really fun. We're brainstorming fun scenes about how Long might open up about his past. So in the story, we knew that he was going to open up about his past. And from the many family banquets and business dinners and things that I've witnessed with my family and my stepdad in China, I immediately knew that Long had to get drunk. And he'd never had a modern cocktail, so he's probably a lightweight. We figured he'd be a lightweight. So these are just really early ideas of how Long might lose his human form at the party after he got drunk. So here on the left, you see like, you know, his face growing. Maybe he's laughing really hard and his teeth get real big. You know, not noticing that his paws had changed. And this one on the right here is probably my favorite, where it looks like the deer spirit from Princess Mononoke
In a suit.
in a suit, but keeping his human face. Just weird stuff like that. And I think this one is I just drew him sort of, you know, puking in the toilet, which later I think evolved into the current gag, which is way better. So here's some more, you know, him hiding his horns, washing his face.
I remember designing the final model for this, and we did go back to a couple of these because there was something about Ben's way of drawing him as a human where we kept thinking of that the world's most interesting man, that like kind of silver fox handsome guy in the tequila ads, where there was like this aspect of, yes, he still needed to echo the shape language of the dragon, but also, you know, I think in many ways, if Long was born in the present day, he would be like a Tony Stark or something, you know, he'd own like a defense contractor and be a billionaire and totally amoral and sell weapons to whoever would buy them. So there was something about the way Ben drew him that was sort of handsome and a little arrogant. And that was something, these probably by the time we were doing them, these drawings were like 2.5 years old, but you just dig for those little nuggets where it feels right.
Thanks. And yeah, that. Okay, and this is much farther along. I think at that point we had kind of figured out Long, and I think Arthur was getting pretty close. So these were kind of some expression explorations and still kind of playing around with the face a little bit. Again, it's possibly what he looks like as an old curmudgeon. Getting a little closer. I think the sort of the steak shape of his head was something that we had latched onto for a long time. And we had like giving him whiskers down here was a thing because we wanted him to sort of resemble that dragon. And this is, I think, yeah, this is, I got to do some costume exploration on top of Arthur's painting. So this is pretty far along. I think at this point we had more or less nailed what Long would look like. So I got to do some cool costume stuff.
You know, didn't I read somewhere that this was before Jackie Chan came on, but we got really lucky with that his iconic nose for a Long. I thought I read somewhere that people caught that the similarity, but it was kind of awesome.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
Ben
I think people
had always imagined Jackie.
That dragon nose. But like the magenta tie, we wanted to kind of hint that it was him. And yeah, that was fun. These are some early Lena explorations. I think the adult or teenage Lena had pretty much been designed, and we were just kind of exploring what kid Lena might look like. Some more of that. I think this is sort of riffing off of what Arthur did, and we were just playing around with different hairstyles. I was very much inspired by my own daughter at the time, and just kind of playing with a little bit of eye shape and stuff as well. Okay, so this one's pretty fun. This was a, let's see here. Okay, so this is a guardian of heaven. So I forget it. I don't remember if, I think it might partly be in Buddhist, but I know it's in Chinese mythology. There are 4 guardians, and I believe they are guardians of heaven. It's been a while. I can't remember, but, and each of them had like a different weapon. One of them had like an umbrella, and one had a guitar and all this stuff. We basically had enough budget for 1 guardian. But all we needed was 1 guardian. We just needed 1 person to stop Long. And so we chose this guy, which is like basically the Peepaw god, and AKA like the rock god. In some places he's depicted with facial hair, and in some places he doesn't. I decided to take a crack at him without facial hair at first, just because I thought it made him extra dorky looking. I also purposely gave him very big earlobes, because that's like a Chinese thing. Yeah, that's a thing in Chinese culture. And I love that I got to make the old man version on the right, because it was really just, it really reminded me of like, you know, my grandparents or old people I would see in my neighborhood, where it was the very tattered wife beater with the sandals. And just the fact that I got to design these celestial sandals. They're like sandals, but they have to be godlike. That was very fun.
Olivia and I were so heartbroken because we lived in Xiamen for like a year when it came time to finally make the production model of this character. And there's this thing that so many dudes, old dudes, do in China, which is they hike their shirt up over their belly to like cool off. Yep. And they just sit around with their belly hanging out, or like walk through the mall. And we're like, dude, we gotta do that with Peepaw God. But we had no money. That was our one regret with Peepaw God. We couldn't see his belly.
Here. Okay, yeah. And here he is with, I got to also take a crack at the heaven, the gates of heaven. And this is an early version of that. And I want to thank Arthur for really telling me to push the scale and the design a lot more than I originally did. So this was a really fun one. So early on, we had also we knew that Long was going to have a flashback scene, and we thought about different ways of doing it. So here's some kind of FX exploration of what that might look like, seeing him in flashback. This one's kind of like a hologram, the bottom left here. And then at one point over here, this is kind of like a Patrick Swayze ghost type of thing going on. And then I tried this one with like cool, like smoke, motion graphics. And then here's some more of those. Kind of getting closer to what we were imagining and how it might like appear and reappear. So yeah, these were really fun. What it might look like for him to emote if we were trying to get more expression into this. You know, as you see it now, it's still, it is like they can emote, but it's kind of like, because it's so particle driven, it's kind of hard to see sometimes. So I was trying to experiment with what that might look like. So before we decided on the sort of celestial flashback, we were originally going to we talked about having Long sort of transported into his tomb, which was like an underground tomb. And so I had a lot of fun, like, Chris let me just go to town with this one and really think about how, like, okay, what does that look like? What once they're in the tomb, how are we going to tell this flashback story? How are we going to tell a long story? And so I thought it'd be really cool to make it kind of more graphic, more iconic, and to have it all told with carvings on the wall. So like Din would be holding like a torch or something like that. So these are just kind of like what that exploration of what that might look like. And these would probably be like animated. But yeah. Okay, so, and then I really love this assignment as well. I got to design the teapot a little bit. So here's some early exploration of the teapot, different shapes, different insignia, things like that. There's some more of those. We're just kind of like, I was basically just trying a lot of different stuff and kind of having Arthur and Chris hone in on what they thought was best. We knew right away that we wanted to have the dragon represented. How we did that was, it was still to be seen. So yeah, this one was getting a little bit closer. You can kind of tell the dragon, but it wasn't clear enough. And I think ultimately we got closer to this. So once we started this, Chris was like, it's just not clear enough. We really want to just tell a story right on the teapot. And I thought that was a really good decision. And because even though the insignia stuff with all the writing looks very authentic, this one, as you see in the film, it's like flashes by the screen just like that. So it was a lot better to just make it tell a story really quickly. So here I'm just playing around with like the dragon and what it might look like to show the 3 wishes. Just getting more detailed, kind of honing in on it, what the top might look like. Here's some more like detailed renderings. Okay, what is it going to look like when the wish is made,
I think it's something that we always also, just real quick, if you guys haven't noticed, there's just a way that Ben handles drawing the dragon that there's just always a soulful quality. There's some aspect of dignity to every single drawing he does of a dragon. And I think that was really important. I don't know if we realized at the time, but it was really important counterweight to how funny and over the top Long was, because there does come a time in the film where he's really, he's a pretty messed up person who carries a lot of baggage and is pretty ashamed of there's some good person inside there, right, that's struggling to get out. And I felt like Ben had a lot of drawings where you could feel a little bit of that dignity and soul to the dragon, just a certain I don't know, a certain something that only his drawings had. So they were really weirdly important. We kept going back to them because we just wanted a touch of that. It felt important.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. And yeah, this is pretty much getting close to the final. Although we made the guy weeping over here even more extreme. Ultimately, the read was going to be even more direct with him screaming and his hands up like this. So I thought that was a good choice. And we kind of ended up on this treatment of what it would look like when he made the wish, or when the dragon popped out. And yeah, these paintings were really fun to do. I got to design the map. That was fun. Okay, and this this is a fun assignment. We needed to populate the city. Yes. We needed to populate the city with logos, packaging, products, just visual noise essentially. And so I was like, I'm glad that I think it was either Chris or Arthur, I don't know, one of you guys gave me this assignment, and I was like, yes, I can totally do this. And so I just dug into my childhood and just thought of the fobbiest things that I could come up with.
I think Ben had this great point, which was like, okay, I'm going to design these logos, but if I really want to do 90s style China, they're going to be like a little off. Like they're going to be like, everything's going to be a little wonky, because it was like they were learning to cartoon, but it was a little behind the times. So he did a good job of that.
Yeah, it was also it's interesting when someone like me who's worked in animation for a long time, you kind of have a habit to design a certain aesthetic, and it looked too cute, like it looked too like Cartoon Network-y,
polished,
whatever. But Ben just really had this what would we say, influence, but he just had a really good charm that some of us professional designers couldn't really capture.
I'm good at camp, very campy stuff.
Yeah, right.
Like the ginseng with the butt cheeks, that was fun to do. Yeah, some fun. This chicken was really fun. Just pig, panda, random stuff.
The
Things that
rabbit,
you-
we were obsessed with the rabbit. It's in the movie somewhere. I can't remember.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, this Pluto dragon is seemed to really resonate with people because there's a lot of, bootleg stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, we gotta make something that looks more bootleg. So yeah, this one is pretty fun. And then the child holding the firecracker. This is a real thing that there's whenever that's how we sell firecrackers. That's how you know it's festive.
Yeah.
But yeah, here's some more like potential props, and how to use this sort of logo. Here's some more props. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Benny.
Thanks. All right, and now I'd like to pass it on to character designer Wira Winata.
Hey guys, thank you, Ben. So one more thing to plug about Ben. He just finished his first children's book called Desert Island. So it's available everywhere in Amazon.
Yeah.
So you guys should check him out. Let me share my. So I just remember the first time I got a call from Chris. Basically, he just said, "Don't take any job before talking to him." And at that time, I had 2 job offers. But he sent me his script. And then I was immediately say, okay, Chris, I want it, whatever the role is. I met with him and Aaron and Arthur at Titmouse. They talked to me. They don't know what to do with me. I wanted to animate, but that's still so far away in the horizon. But then I noticed that they didn't have any 3D visualization of their designs. So I told them, like, I want to work on characters. And I think that's how it started. I basically, I remember asking Arthur to send me one of his designs, and I just like do a really quick model of Din. And at that time, he was a lot younger than what he is right now. And then from there, I think Chris just clicked, and then it's like, okay, that's it. This is what you'll be doing.
Yeah, I got this email from Chris with this video file at like 2 a.m. And Chris he emailed it to me and said, "We need this guy now." And I just replied with a yes.
So that's how it all began, basically. And so my first assignment is basically trying to figure out Long. So just a big shout out to like everybody who's not here, Katia Chen, Heidi Smith, Willie Reel, and Jeff Turley and Kay Asadira. There's so many people who are working. This is from Kay. This is from Katia. This is from Kay Asadira. So they already sort of like found the essence of how Long is supposed to be. This is also Kay. This is Ben that you've seen before. Ben. I love this drawing of this version of Long, Ben, by the way.
Thanks, man.
And I think this is Heidi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, Heidi. And this is when I think Arthur and Chris sort of told me like they do like the language of sort of that boxiness that Heidi and also Willie drew on their designs. And I thought, and I agree with them. It looks really cool. And also Jeff Turley did a painting based on the same concept, I believe. These are all Jeff Turley. And then not to mention also Rad, when he boarded Long in the beginning, it's all really boxy and has a very specific look. And this is, I think, Chris's note about the difference of having that boxiness continuous from the head versus having sort of like a muzzle that is separated like a dog. And we went for the left one. Of course, Din and Long. This is Chris's drawing. And this is Arthur's painting. So basically
Chris's painting, sorry.
Oh, this is Chris's painting? Oh, okay.
That
No
sounds
credit
so
for you then.
surprised. Jeez.
So basically they just dumped all this artwork and told me like, what
Figure
they
it out,
like, what
Wira.
they don't like, and then yeah, you basically it's like figure it out. I'm like, okay, that sounds fun. So this was my first take on it.
First take. Oh my goodness.
This was the first take, yeah. And so it was very boxy, but I mean, from the very get-go, I told him like, I think I don't want to be pixel pushing, meaning like when you do design, you start pushing the eyes, you know, up 2 pixels up, you know, make it squintier on one side or whatever. And I said to them like, I want to do it in expression so that you can see it working in animation. And you can see it sort of like coming to life. And that's the reason why I did all this in animation. And then I did some animation tests between Din and Long. Din was actually done by the Beijing base team. This is before the Xiamen team was even built. Yeah. And this is actually the fun part of my job, but unfortunately I don't get to do much of this because it takes too much time to prepare all that. But yeah, I mean, this sort of informs, you know, like what kind of relationship Din and Long, and we get to see it in sort of like 3-dimensional form. And then looking at the board, just seeing sort of like a physical comedy that we can find. This is the one that Josh mentioned about Detachable Arm that I had to fight so much. It's like, look at Josh's awesome boards. Like we gotta make it happen. So like it's just like a way to hide how the arm detach and, you know, show up on the other side. And then this is Arthur's painting for sure. This is Arthur's, and I love this page. This is sort of like my guide on how to build Long, the graphic quality, the angular quality of it, and that's basically becomes the basis. And so I did a little bit of tests to do that, also based off Josh's drawing.
Yeah, we should mention that was a great idea that Josh had to sort of embrace both the S curve kind of flowy movement which is very conventional Chinese drawing, and then give it this angularity. Was totally a different take, but somehow felt really good and unique. And then after Wira, Olivier, and the rigging and modeling teams, it was really hard to execute on. Josh did a lot of things that were like, "Ooh, that's cool, good idea, Josh." And then Wira and Olivier and everyone else was like, "Oh my God, this is so hard to do and move."
With fur too, on top of that.
Yeah, with fur and squash. I'm sure Olivier will take us through that incredible journey.
So, you know, after the boxy Long, you know, after looking at Josh's amazing boards, like basically everybody's on board, like, okay, we got to make him rounder, make him more fluff, more huggable. That's the term that Chris always says. And so we go rounder. These are all Josh's boards, and also more extreme expressions. So this is sort of like the second version of Long 2.0. So from here, basically, Borja Montoro took over. He has some draw over. He worked with Arthur with some draw over, and then sent it to Leo Sanchez and his studio to actually build the production model. And they did pretty much like the amazing transformation of Long, that the way that you see it now. And of course, the real magic happens when the team at base Xiamen, led by Olivier, took over and make every single character alive. This is my next assignment, which is it's like my favorite assignment. I get to design Din's mom. And these are drawings from Kat. I love her, all her drawings. And I think this was sort of like the starting point that we came up with. This was Mom 1.0, and then we transformed to this one. And I think this one is pretty close to the final. So same philosophy, you know, we did all these like facial expressions to explore the design, see what works, what doesn't work. I mean, for lack of better words, we want it to fail. We want to see like where it looks ugly, where it doesn't look appealing. And that's when we want to see like, you know, whether we can redesign it, you know, on the spot and then move on from there. And then the next one is Lina's dad. These are all Kat's drawing also, Katia Chan. And I think Heidi's drawing of that becomes sort of like the master design for everything. Yeah. Same process. Just simple.
I think we also talked a little bit in these stages, and then later it was totally carried through with Olivier and team, was like this combination of the bold shapes that Heidi would do and that Kat would do that were clean and kind of shape over anatomy, but also like these influences like Miyazaki-ish stuff where we do these big toothy smiles, or we use Lupin as a reference for Din a lot. I feel like that gave it just a little tweak away from the conventional DNA of like 3D animation that had been done in the US up to that point, which is really nice. And I think Wira had a good eye for that stuff.
Yeah, I think that was something that I'm really glad that you did, Chris. You, like, a lot of work that I do, they always say like, we don't want Disney, but it always ends up being a Disney like. but this one is like, no, we're gonna be different, and we actually stay true to it. We're gonna, you know, we're not doing sort of like we're not putting sort of like Caucasian eyes into Asian characters, you know, at the very least, and we're not using like really subtle nose, you know, on Asian characters. And I'm really glad that we get to do all that. Yeah. And by the way, these are all possible because I actually get to work one-on-one with Chris and Arthur directly. So yeah, whenever I have a question, I just knock on their door and you know, have a discussion. Next is Long's human form. Again, Ben has already shown his awesome drawings that became the basis of the design. And of course, there's a two version of Long, which is the modern Long and also the royal Long. So same process, different, you know, exploring different facial hairs. Obviously, we don't get to see the full Long in the movie because he's in holographic mode. This one's slow. And then I think I think Shelly had came in at this point. So he wanted me to explore sort of like a couple of options with, you know, with the bigger rope and with big longer rope versus shorter rope. Yeah. And of course the three goons. These are, I think, this is Heidi's. Yeah, Heidi's. But the idea, I think, like Ben mentioned, it was already implanted from the beginning. We started with the big goon because he sort of had the easiest way of like shape language-wise. Arthur had did some draw over because my rig was really junky, so he cleaned up. So this looks decent because of Arthur.
That's another funny thing we talked about earlier of like seeing the movie in China. So when we got over there, there was like this WeChat thread with a bunch of us where we were just taking pictures of people we'd see around China that looked exact like we'd just be at a Burger King and there would be Big Goon would be there or one of the neighbors or people God. You just felt like you were seeing the characters.
Yeah.
Again, it's a testament to getting a bunch of details right. Yeah.
So some more expressions. Time, you can tell like time is running out basically. This is basically my sessions with Chris, or Chris will come over. It's like, here you go. These are the designs.
I can't believe you're showing these. Oh my god.
Oh my god, I have so many of these, and I love those. But you can tell from these drawings that is that simplicity that Chris wants. He doesn't want like if you notice, there are a lot of animated movies where they have so much creases especially under their brow, and if you see the character from a distance, there's so much noise in the expressions. But so from day one, Chris wants, like, we want clarity. From whatever distance that we get to see the character, we get to see their emotions, right away. And so here's Pocket. I think my big contribution on this is, like, Chris, I want this without any eyebrows. That was like that was something that I insisted, because we've seen that, especially in Chinese movies too. Like, they always have sort of like the bad guy with poor people with, like, no eyebrows, always typecasted as bad guys in China. This is the most fun one. Small Goon. There was no particular designs. I mean, we base it off Heidi's drawing, and Chris keep on referring to the Three Monks animated short, I think, that he saw online. And he just keep on repeating that we gotta find that feeling, that that simplicity, that little nub on the body. So that's basically, these are all like Chris's drawings, indicating.
Look at all the effort on the design of the nose.
Yeah,
very specific.
Yeah. And surprising, this was one of the toughest one to design. I think we went like 3 times on this one, and then we ended up with this guy. And I think this is my favorite pose of him. Same thing, same process.
We always joked about Short Goon that he was like the character who didn't know he was in the movie. Like, if he'd been a real actor, like, he'd have been given lines, but he never looked at them. Yeah. So he was just always like a step behind. It's fun sometimes for no good reason, just to give a character an attribute that makes you feel like they have a life or a existence outside of the plot of this movie that determines who they are.
Right. And that's what I love about him too. At least the way I see him is, like, he's not. It's not about him being a bad or good guy. It's more about him being loyal to his friends. So whatever that they get him into, he just follows through, and he makes sure that everybody's happy about that. And I think that's what I love about him. Pipa God is one of the most fun also. It came in so late in the game, they decided to add this character. This is Ben's design, and of course Chris's drawings. This, like, you can tell already, like, it's all in there. He's just like indicating it, like, really clearly what he wants to get out of this character. And these are my favorite sketches of him. I'm gonna sell this on eBay after this, by the way. And this is sort of like the the photo reference. Try to combine those two together, and so him came out.
It was really hard I remember on Pipa God to get him to look. We used that from Ron from the Kurosawa movie, the King Lear character, a lot, but it was really hard to get him to look like old Asian guy with this beard and mustache, and he looked like Santa Claus half the time. And we're like, what are we? I don't even really understand what we did right eventually, but
I think in the beginning, like, my first sculpt was pretty Santa Claus like. I think I remember.
And that was a really challenging thing on the designs as a whole, was just to get the authentic quality that felt Chinese. It had so much to do with really subtle anatomy. It's a lot of subtlety in the brow shapes, the way the eyes and the forehead roll together, the width of the skull, like things that you just spent forever. We spent a lot of time staring at Arthur's head, basically, and pointing at stuff and being like, why does Arthur look like Arthur? But a lot of that, it was so easy to make it look too simple and look silly and to be unmoored from the real anatomy, and so easy to get too much anatomy. So I think very proud of that.
Yeah, I agree.
You're
next
welcome.
is that's true. Next is Buckley. Buckley also came in late, and I think the most fun part is like when they show me the boards of like him holding the iPad, and I had to do some tests on like how to fit that iPad. It was a pretty big iPad, and I forgot the actor's name if you guys can remember it. So he's always in Stephen Chow's movie. He was in Shaolin Soccer.
Yeah.
So we use him as sort of like a reference. I think I don't have any design drawings for this. It was all from the boards, I believe. Yeah, so we just went with it. Yeah. And besides, he's going to be covered by the iPad the whole time anyway with Gatsby. So, but I thought he works really nicely on in the film. The neighbors are my favorite thing. I mean, I wish this is something that I would actually do, take more time on. I remember telling Chris, like, if I ever get to animate this thing, I only want to animate all the sequences. I don't really care about the dragon or anything. Just let me animate all the sequence. I mean, not all the sequences, but the sequences in the Shikuman area. That was the like my favorite part of the film, basically. And this is Kat's drawing, I think. Yeah.
No, it's my
Chris's drawing.
Oh, this is Chris. Yeah.
Right.
I like how I mistake it. This is Heidi's, and I think
Now
this
they look
becomes
good.
sort of the base. Yeah. This is the one that Arthur presented just now, and I love that idea of like you change the clothing of the same person. You know, it's basically changing sort of like the way how you perceive people. So I didn't really have time on this one. We had to rush through everything into production. So these are all the sort of the neighbors that didn't live with. This was an earlier version of it that Arthur painted over my model.
And that was a real challenge, I think. I remember Olivia and I sitting and thinking about this because we had such limited budget to make secondary characters and crowds, and like there was a lot of scope to the movie. But we knew, like we talked about it, we're like, those, as you guys know from the movie, there's 6, 7 neighbors, and they're sort of the warmth and the personality and the annoying stuff they do, that is a character in the movie, that community. And if you don't long for that community, if you don't have affection for it, if you don't believe in it, then a lot of things about the movie don't work. And so I remember sitting in Shaman staring at like the resources we had, and Olivia and I were just like, we just have to figure this out because these characters are part of the soul of the movie, and if they feel like a bunch of crowd generics that we recostume, it's just not going to work. So it was always interesting to try and have to make those calls about what was worth your time and design energy and what wasn't.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, at one point that was my task to basically convert all the generics into all of these, basically. All of these,
right.
Yeah, I don't know how it ended up, but yeah, I mean, I thought that was sort of like the strategy. I gotta say, Chris, the grandma, the one with the blue shirt, is definitely my favorite design of them all.
So cute.
Oh, this is a character that Arthur and I did based off Chris's drawing in the beginning. This one, but he got cut from the movie.
Very guy.
Yeah. So this is the lineup of pretty much Kat and Heidi's drawings. Oh, so this is basically the design philosophy that Arthur brought in from the very beginning. It's like you design the characters with a certain shape in mind, and that and just by focusing on that, then basically those shapes becomes the basis of every single design on that particular character. And I thought that was really, really helpful. This was the lineup that Arthur painted over. This is sort of like an older version of everything. But yeah, and I gotta say, what do you call? It was a really memorable experience, like throughout this whole making of the film and the 2 years that I was in it. And I have to say that that's all thanks to Aron and Chris and Arthur and Shelley for their leadership, And of course, like all the amazing artists that I get to work with, they make you want to work harder and better every day because, you look like ass if you don't. And so I'll be forever thankful for that. And
You're
so
welcome.
from here, then I'm going to bring it to where the real magic happens, you know, when we sent everything off to Olivier and his team in China, and they are the one who, you know, made everybody, you know, alive, all the characters alive. So take it over, Olivier.
Thank you, Wira. Thank you for your work. And let me share my screen as well. So I was the head of character animation, and so we make things move. But interestingly, I was already in China when I was contacted by Aron and Chris. And so it felt very, very close to my heart to make a movie about China. And let's go through the process. So as Wira just showed you, he had done this lineup of characters. And that was the starting point for making them animated. Knowing what we wanted to achieve, I felt like, okay, let's bring in some 2D animator. And so I asked Borja Montoro, an ex-Disney animator, extremely talented, to come in and help us explore Dean in motion. It was kind of necessary to find range and expression range, as well as what is pantomime and body language can evocate. And so one interesting thing was Borja was actually animating in 2D, just key poses of a sequence, and helping us really understand the subtleties of straight and curves on the eye shape, how a closed lid could look like, really trying to find that authenticity that, like we said earlier, is not just a Caucasian, classic cartoony character. He has really an authenticity and a style that hopefully makes us feel like it's unique, close to Chris's vision. Then we ended up with this final page. It was a mix of Borja and Arthur Drover and painting, and we felt like, okay, this is the Dean. And from there, it was time to model it in 3D, but not like the design process of Wira, but now to make it animatable for the animators. And so for that, we called another friend, Leo Sanchez, extremely talented modeler. And the goal was, let's not make something move without practicing and making sure the flesh and the mesh. I don't know if everyone in the audience understands what a CG character is, but there is a topology full of little dots that are composing some sort of cage that wraps around the volume of that clay character. And to make him feel fleshy and appealing, all of this needs to move very, very well, not in wonky way, otherwise it will start looking like an artificial character. And so the goal with Leo was, what if we sculpt all those expressions and really see if we can find range for Dean? When we toggle, do we feel like the cheekbones, the ears, the flesh, the lid are all moving according to the pulling of the jaw, and everything seems to respond organically. And so Leo did that incredible work. I was really happy to collaborate with him. We were, it was really a wonderful experience. Now, one thing that I loved from Arthur earlier was the goal of always stylizing. So from far away, you see things extremely clearly, expressions read really well. And so Chris, Wira said that too, by the way, the not creating any distractions on the face by too many folds, too many lines, too many shadows that are able to cast on the expression and kind of muddle the read. So interestingly, from the ZBrush models of Leo, we did a super rough look depth. That's even before RanJan and his lighting team could intervene, but it was allowing us to see if those eyes read really well, like those posted drawings that Chris used to do, and they did. We felt like, okay, that stern eyeline or that super bright-eyed kind of naive kid is coming across appropriately. So we ended up with this full body.
I should say, Olivier, sorry, but I just want to compliment them for this stage, because when we first met with Sony 2 years into this, 2.5 years in, they were interested in coming on board, and we had all these beautiful paintings, and we did the pitch of the story, and I think they even watched the animatic, and they're like, this is great. But like, we see all kinds of great paintings of great looking movies. But the problem is, can you actually make it look like that? And I was like, oh, wait one moment, allow me to finish my presentation. And then we just tapped through to these busts of Din and Lena, and instantly anybody, which those guys at Sony are incredibly high level animation people, you could just see them be like, oh, you're doing this, you know how to do this. And I think that's such a testament to all the work that they just showed you guys, is that it's one thing to make a still image of something, it's another to solve for the nuance of a character and anatomy so it can actually perform in a consistent way. And that's that top level of animation. So anyways, we wouldn't probably have made it without that proof of concept.
Yeah, that's true. That all those little steps, right? They all add up eventually. And one thing that was key is we were actually building a studio in China, in Xiamen, with tons of animators. We didn't have a rig, so this is actually a creative rig provided by Leo while we are developing our real pipeline, our real tools, and training our animators. But it served as an amazing testing ground to see the different moods of Dean, the happy Dean, the depressed Dean, the super in a hurry Dean. And that was a bit of a breakthrough when Pencil, he became our lead animator, Xiaoguang. He became a wonderful driving force for Dean, helped with Riyadh, another animator from DreamWorks that was the supervisor of the character. And together, they really pushed to find that style. And we ended up with a very bouncy Dean, kind of Lupin the Third, a little bit like you were saying earlier, Chris, and finding a way to bridge the fact that it's a little bit of a heavy story, and we had to bring lightheartedness through the animation. And so, funny enough, sorry for the naked Dean, try to hide that bottom part. But once we want to go further, you actually have to make your production rig. And for this, we were lucky to have extremely talented artists in China. This is the work of Chris Lai and his team. And we really went as far as we could with all the knowledge we knew on trying to sculpt really appealing deformations, keeping a beautiful elbow, getting a sense of anatomy without ever feeling like it's too physically real, because we know Chris was not at all into that. He wanted stylization at all costs, but you see those are tiny details like the thickness of a forearm that compresses when it's closing. Those are things that I know I care about as an animator in terms of appeal. And so we really try to sculpt all of those blend shapes to get something extremely appealing, to get very nice knuckle, very nice wrist deformations. And therefore obtain in the end details that actually matter in the long run. It starts with hand poses that are so explicit and vivid and extremely telling of his mood and his actions, and they can look extremely angular when necessary or extremely fluid and curvy when the pose requires it. Obviously starts with the work of Leo as well here in the modeling, but really delivered in rigging afterwards. And it's really that teamwork that we were talking about earlier. All those steps have to add up to the next one without ever the card castle kind of tipping over. And so you obtain a turntable of our character with some elegant lines, attitudes that read from far away and allow you to feel like, okay, this little guy is gonna carry the movie on his shoulders. And then we go into facial rigging, for which we called another colleague, Hidetaka Yusumi. So now we're bringing a Japanese on top of a Spanish, on top of a Chinese, on top of an American. It's really an international project. And we started seeing our Dean moving alive. It was still a little bit of rough and kind of soft, a little bit goopy for my taste in terms of animation, but Pencil was doing this first test and really kind of broke that ceiling that, okay, this is our character and he's alive. And then
10 years ago, a cool spring day, a gentle breeze. A lonely young boy waits after school. That's me.
that test was, okay, this is our Dean, he's alive, and we're gonna have fun. We then made model sheets in order to have the whole team understanding what are the several expressions Dean will go through in the movie, as well as phonemes, because we animated in English, which was a bit of a challenge for some of the Mandarin-speaking animators, and yet they just dealt with it like heroes. We created a set of tools to facilitate that maintaining those subtle design cues throughout production. This is a type of thing that people hardly talk about, but when you have a startup company, you usually do not have tools or fancy custom tools. And so here the goal was, we love those expressions. How can we make animators able to grab them and mix and match those brows and that mouth and that beautiful smile without ever making the model kind of fall apart and what we call off model. And it starts looking like it's Dean's cousin and not quite Dean himself. And so we really had to try and train the team to have that eye for detail. It's like you said, Chris, earlier, it's simple looking and yet extremely complex in its balance before it can fall apart. So,
I think it's also a testament to, which I forgot to mention, for all of these departments that these guys led, is the extent to which, you know, a lot of our crew were first-time feature. A lot of them was, in many cases, first time working in an art department or whatever. So all of the work that you saw today was coming from people who were leveling up really fast as they went. And I think it took a lot of smart thinking by the leadership to make that possible, because it's really easy for that to implode.
I was just going to say, like, I don't think you can tell from watching the movie that, you know, a large portion of the crew, it was their first time, you know, doing it. And it's a testament to definitely to the leadership.
Yeah.
Then you see we played with little tricks to keep an expression and yet add a bit of flesh compression on the lower jaw. If you see the movie, the character never feels very stiff. Even if he is in a bit of a minimalistic acting style in moments, he's never stiff or rigid looking, which we felt with Chris helped giving that soft, cute, huggable appeal.
So this is the baby. Okay, yes, but it's her birthday.
This is how an animator works. They start by filming themselves. This is a Pencil, one of our Chinese animator and lead of Dean, and this is his blocking.
What? No, baby. Okay, yes, but it's her birthday, and I'm planning something special. So can you just get me the assignment, please?
So at this stage, it is still in pose to pose. Not all of the frames are animated, and then the final work is here.
What? No, baby. Okay, yes, but it's her birthday, and I'm planning something special. So can you just get me the assignment, please?
With motion blur and lighting and colors and everything. And so then the process continues. I'm going to try to accelerate, but we did the same thing for Lina, extremely complex character to capture. Once again, Borja Montoro here cracking the code on that extremely appealing Lina. Leo Sanchez helping us create expressions, giving her that range from really a joyful girl to extremely stern and determined to get her way. Very challenging character. And what was interesting is we were lucky to have in the animation team, Yang, that I had worked with at Oriental DreamWorks prior, and she saw Lina and totally captured the first walk cycle of a very elegant yet oppressed nearly young lady that feels restrained by society. So all of her silhouette, you can tell, is extremely vertical, extremely narrow. I love the detail in the way the feet roll and lift off the ground. And then we juxtapose that with what Lina would want to be or would feel like she really is, a more joyful, free, and liberated young lady. but life being it often turns into sadness. So even prior to the short work, we were exploring range in the character that way and training animators to understand the character. She's also quite pissed off sometimes. And we had to make her walk in high heels, which is something that rarely happens actually. So far in my career, I never had to do that. So nice challenge there as well. Early range exploration, playing with, this is a creative rig. There's no fancy controls yet, but we are exploring attitudes and trying to understand her. And then we played with this scene where she arrives in her shikumen and discovers the chalk game on the ground and totally changes her mood. And same, therefore, you end up with lots of interesting poses and appeal. The work of Alex Lee as a supervising animator and Yang Yang as the lead, fabulous team together. And then we get to the big pink furry guy, Long. Wonderful challenge. Obviously, you saw a lot of him already in the previous speakers. I'm just going to show you a little bit of the behind the scenes on how we got there with same thing, some exploration with Borja, and funny enough, the pitfalls of making him too much like the Maximus or a horse, or and breaking those codes that Chris had in mind. So you learn, and those mistakes, that's what I'm showing right now, is that those mistakes makes you realize that what are the important codes that define the character, avoiding the curve in the jawline or tiny details like this that suddenly take it too far. And I'm even going to show this, Chris, which was the Long you did not like, because we went through something like this where we sculpted a Long that was very snaky. Chris was totally turned off by the snaky feeling of it. He looked kind of dumb, also maybe not quite the character necessary. And so that allowed us to go back to the drawing board with Borja, explore a sequence that Josh had boarded, and come up with what is really the defining elements of Long, and it's that extremely long, angular body. Arthur helped us gather our final thoughts here, and we went into modeling the new version of Long, and his cute little paws, which I adore. And then we obtained a Long that is closer to the Long you see in the screening. It's a character that is suddenly totally different, has a lot of very graphic statement, and yet has depth. Is so long that you cannot treat him just as a 2D drawing. So you have to compose him in Z space, in depth, but cheating to camera also quite often. The early animation test of how he's going to transition from one pose to another, even his relationship with Dean, both in terms of size and eyeline. This was all very, very early, and yet this is what makes you get to the final character we know, exploring his face range, deciding how we're going to transition to that very iconic toothy smile, and how we can go from there to the disappointed, stern Long, and the challenge of making that mouth corner go from the front plane of a box all the way zipped to the side. It sounds easy, but technically it actually has a few challenges, and the team was really able to try their best to find those solutions.
I think it's
starting to play with.
Oh, sorry, just to compliment them again. I think it's part of what I'm really proud of is the character, is that he doesn't rely on somebody else's solution. You know, it would have been pretty easy to do a horsey head and follow those conventions. and those solutions were waiting for us, but we said no. And then it became this challenge of really elegantly designing this talking, walking box head. And the fact that it hopefully feels totally seamless, I think is neat. What's even neater to me is that there's no other character in animation that's quite like this. And that's really something. There've been a lot of these movies, and it's cool to do something new.
Yeah, you're right. And always trying to make sure he has a great range, even if it's something small, the shape of the low lid, obviously playing with pupils, but Chris was extremely cautious of not overdoing that type of trick. We played instead more with the apex of a mouth compression, how we are always posing for the camera. Lots of little tricks that kind of make him look designed and stylized for what the camera sees. Same thing here, an example of how the animators played with all of that library. This is based on tools that I used to have at DreamWorks and really try to find for our animators to have access to, that change their workflow in a way that allowed us to have that quality throughout. They could blend, they could swap, they could really mix and match all of that great library. And now I'm going to show you a bit of a behind the scene of a shot. This one is done by Sujit. Sujit Chatterjee is the supervising animator. And what's interesting is that on a shot like this, there's a few challenges, but one funny one is when he grabs his tail, he grabs someone else's tail, because there was no way to have the tail curl around Dean and actually still be in his hand. So there's a second long on the side that is grabbing the tail off. And through the camera, we don't notice the cheat. But those are the tiny little tricks that are hidden from audiences and yet allow us to have that fun in animation. An excellent example is here, playing with multiple arms for motion blur, or playing with what Wira and Josh said earlier in how they conceived the line that really flows perfectly, yet the shoulder is behind somewhere here, and you wouldn't want that arm to go from that shoulder all the way to the steering wheel, first because it would feel way too long and would totally break the silhouette. So we had to create that fake stunt arm, we called, a detachable arm that can be placed wherever. It looks good on camera view. It does not look good when you start pivoting your 3D view around, because then you realize that there is a kind of a stiff body and there is a chopped arm. And yet that's the magic of animation. You do whatever, it's make-believe. You can fool audiences with whatever is important for the story. And final example, a complete breakdown from Keaton, a genius lead animator on Long, and this is the steps from layout all the way to final animation.
Car. The spoils of war on display for the royal. What is this invisible force? Glass.
The reference, a mix of hand-drawn and live action.
The spoils of war on display for royal. What is this invisible force? Glass.
And posing the dragon with several thousands, 1,000 control in order to really shape him in the way that the shot needs.
What's this? Car. The spoils of war on display for royal. What is this invisible force? Glass.
I'm always surprised by the glass, so
Yeah,
that's a
me
good
too.
sign.
I still laugh 6 years later.
That's it for me. Thank you. And
Awesome.
now I'm passing the baton on to RanJan, VFX Soup, and RanJan, take it away.
Hello,
The
everyone.
theme you might notice here is one department in doing something inspired and then passing it on to the other department, being like, "Good luck figuring that out," and the other department solves it and then gives it to the next department. "Good luck lighting this stuff."
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Cool, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming for this session. So as a VFX Soup, hold on. Yeah. So as a VFX Soup, it's my job to make sure all these pieces, I mean, from this presentation, you would have noticed how much detail or how much attention to detail has been put in every department, how much time everyone has spent across in every department. And it is my responsibility to make sure that all that details is being passed through every department. So in a typical animation movie, we have these many major production departments. Obviously, there are story, sound, and all those things which I'm not covering here. So it is basically comes as my responsibility when it is coming through putting together all the pieces in this puzzle. There is often a lot of things going on outside what we see in the screen. Like if you see an effect shot where we literally build an entire world with smoke, and what we see in the screen is only a 2D representation of what has been there. There are so many lines of scripts and coding running. There are so many softwares, and all those things are going behind the scenes. So in this presentation, I'll basically focus a bit on lighting. So I'll quickly play through a breakdown of a shot to show how a shot comes from storyboard to lighting. All right. Cool. So this is what basically a shot looks like once it's done in animation. And the color and the light is definitely important to sell the texture of the elements, the mood of the scene, and also to direct the eye where the director is intended for the audience to look. That's where lighting plays the majority of the role. We usually start with this. So this is a beautiful sequence designed by Shelley and team. So we usually have something called a sequence painting for the sequence, which shows the color and mood and the light direction, the time of day and things for this for that sequence. From there, also we have designs for every element in the location. So this is an example of the location I'm going to demo, where we basically model every piece of the geometry and color them, and this is what basically a texture pass looks like. Then same with the long and the thin, we have a texture pass for them, and you can see a background painting also there. And we start to add lighting. So the one on the top left corner is where we start to add the key light. The second one is the skylight. The third one, we add extra spill light, basically to add a little more, a little more depth and shape. And the fourth one, so if you look at the first key light, there is a lot of dark corner there. That's something we don't necessarily need in the shot. So that's where we add additional lights, and we basically end up getting an environment like this. So as an environment, it may look, it has enough shape and everything, but that's not the point of the shot. It's the shot is trying to tell a story. Then we start to add a similar thing for characters. We start to add key light, fill light, skylight, and extra lights to shape the character better, and we end up getting something like this. And the movie Wish Dragon has a very stylized look. As you see in the art, Chris wanted to make it look more closer to the artworks, the paintings, rather than making it look like a CG looking movie. That's where, so based on
also he wanted the local identity of the characters to remain true to what they are. Like even if it's evening, we don't want long to look orange. He still wanted long to look a little more pinkish and things like that. So with this, we start to add optics and final tweaks, and this is how the final shot looks like. And if I go and yeah. This is how that final shot is.
Yeah, it was one of the things too about Long, RanJan, that I think you guys did an incredible job with, which is, as you guys saw in Olivier's Maya files, he is a 2D illusion. So like he's gesturing with his arm, but his arm sometimes would be like 6 feet behind his head, like casting weird shadows on himself. He's like a jungle gym, basically, in a lot of ways, this 3-dimensional shape. And so if you guys look at every sequence in the movie, Shelley and RanJan sort of came up with this really clever way of shaping him, giving him, because he basically is lit very graphically, and that usually starts to look cheap and it can very easily look unfinished. But they came up with this really subtle combination of warm and cool pinks to create form without having, for those of you who like the technical painting side, very little contrast and yet a ton of form, a sense of him really being a physical presence. And that's one of the most skillful lightings of a character I've seen. Again, hopefully it just looks seamless, but it's actually really hard to do and really hard to simplify such a complicated form shot after shot after shot to get you to look at the right places.
That's right, yeah. So I'll talk about that a little. So as an example, if you look at this Long, this is just a key light. You can see that the eyes are shadowed by the eyebrows. So which is not, that's where we end up adding a lot more extra lights to, we have to definitely read the eye sockets on the eyes. So we end up adding light there to make the character read better. Same thing with the, another trick we used is Long has these thick eyebrows, which often cast shadow into his eyes. So we basically end up creating a separate shadow light just to have a softer shadow from the eyebrows. Otherwise, we will have a shadow moving around on his eyes and face all the time. So that's a trick we used. And also, the character is always moving around, so that makes it even more difficult to do these hacks. Then I'll talk about one more shot, which looks a lot simpler on the screen. It's just 1-2 characters, Din and Long. So similar way, we start with a super flat skylight. We start adding top lights, key lights, fill lights, and the end result is somewhat like this. So even though animation would have faced the hand forward, a lighting can make it look like it's going behind. So with tricks in lighting, we can definitely bring that forward. So we basically start shaping. Oh, it's not about his bottom part; it's about his face. So we start to remove light from there. Then we bring the hand forward by adding extra lights at the hand. We punch up the lights on the fingers, so that helps to read the action. So those are some of the tricks we use. And often, Chris comes with the paint over, which sometimes tricky to manage. So, so I tell Chris, yeah, beautiful painting, but we have the character moving in the screen. So we had to come up with some 2D tricks because that's the only way we could manage what he's looking for and what is true to this movie is trying to say. So we had this. We used some of the tech passes. This is something called a data pass, and which gave us a little more control in post and in the lighting tools. And we came up with this solution of we could basically mask anywhere in the character and remove or add lights using these tools. And this is something which will stick when things are moving also. Yeah, so those are some of the tricks we use there. Yeah, so I'll quickly play a breakdown of this, what I talked about the shot now.
RanJan also learned that when he would come up with these amazing technical solutions and he would show them to me. And then I'd be like, oh, does that mean we can do this then? And so eventually he learned to just not show me his tricks. And I would just I wouldn't know how he was doing it, but then I couldn't use them anywhere else. So he figured me out.
Yeah, at some point, I think Chris started treating every frame like a Photoshop frame. I mean, which is beautiful. It's all beautiful. It's just, time limits us from doing all that. Often we have a lot of versions for a movie. I'll quickly play an example of one shot which went through a lot of versions. We try different contrast values, color values, before, especially for some of the important shots like this. Yeah, I could play that one more time. And this is another interesting location we had worked on, where it was quite difficult to get a 2D feeling like this from a. So we do have every leaf modeled, every piece of this has been modeled, and in a typical animated movie, we have shadows going around through the bushes and everything. And Chris and Shelley wanted a very specific, very cartoony feeling, a toonish feeling without any distracting shadows. So we use technically, sometimes we added the color pass back into the lighting, so that kind of gave us this this incredible look. And this is something I had difficulty melting in at the beginning, because it's something I was not used to, but I think I love the end result. I'm thankful that Chris forced us to do this. So this is one of that location I really admire, and I'm thankful that I did it. This is another location or another shot where it was quite challenging. I think Chris did talk about this in one of the making videos, where we had a car which was a lot bigger than what reality is, and we had Long sitting inside the car, and he goes outside the car too, where of course when he's sitting in the car, we have the car body blocking all the lights. So we ended up creating a setup, so we call it Long's personal sun. We ended up creating a lighting setup only for Long, which basically helps us to shape Long, and we had another setup for the outside, which basically makes it, so there is a fine, but the softwares, all these rendering softwares are designed to give, they are good at giving photorealistic output nowadays. It gets very tricky when we have to go away from that photorealistic look. At the same time, make it, if you go too far, it is gonna start looking broken. So we had to find that balance by playing around with these kind of tricks. So this is one of that was quite challenging. We spent, I think, quite a lot of time to get it right. Yeah, this is another simple looking shot, but it's a tube which has a lot of curves. Basically, we had to have so many. So if you can see that there are so many. All those shapes are readable individually. To get that, we have to keep so many lights in every probably 50 centimeters to get all those corners to have lighting, and we had translucency, so the light comes from outside. And this was an expensive shot. If I remember right, I think this took around 20 to 30 hours to render a frame. So basically, just like this, the movie is made out of around 150,000 individual frames like this, and the render times would have been an average render time of 25 to 30 hours a frame. So it's a lot of machine power also went in this. And this is a full contact sheet of the entire movie once it's done. It was a proud moment and a beautiful moment to see all this, like this. Yeah.
I just broke into a cold sweat looking at all this.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And of course, none of this would have been possible without, some of our amazing crew. This is basically the lighting team. Of course, there are other people who work behind. There is Anu from FX. There is Andrew from Surfacing, and all those people. So that's.
And RanJan, you had a fair number of people who were doing feature level lighting for the first time, right? Like coming either from VFX or TV or something.
A lot. We had a lot of. We had majority of the crew which were new to feature film or anything at this level. So, and on top of that, we of course had a language barrier. There was. I remember this moment where, the note I had given was, "Oh, it looks cool," and it got that shot I didn't see for a long time, and oh, where is that shot? And they replied, "Oh, I thought it looked cool." Then of course no, I didn't mean that. It looks cool. It looks blue.
Wow.
So we needed
the terminology.
Yeah. So there were definitely translation barriers, but I think the team was very curious about, they were very enthusiastic about a movie quality like this, and they really did put their 100% in, and we have an amazing movie. And this is a movie I can truly say that I enjoyed working on it at every moment, and I guess that shows up in the screen.
Yeah, totally.
All right, that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to go straight to questions. I know we went over time for a little bit, but no worries. I think I speak for everyone. We'd much rather see everybody's presentation. So thank you all for showing us, and also thank you guys for sticking around. So yeah, I can take a couple questions. Chris, if you see any that you think are interesting, I'm going to just pick one here.
I can add. I can answer one.
Sure, go for it.
Olivier answer to Dagmara. I hope I said your name right. But I mean, the biggest thing that helped us with some of the outsourcing studios, the difference between us sending somebody there for just a week or a few days to kind of connect with the crew and help communicate the style of the movie. That's what made the difference, really. That's what helped those studios be really, successful. And we had some really great partners. Monk Studios was amazing, and CGCG and ILM, and we were very lucky.
Agora as well in animation.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. Yeah, when I remember when ILM started, we did a quick training there of 2 days, and they picked it up quite quickly. And for Monk, we decided to send Pencil, one of the lead animators, and he was able to really help that team because it was a bigger team, more people to get on board. And he was able to totally take them onto the right style, show them all the tips and tricks. But it's not just visual, trying to understand the style, it's also how do you get there efficiently and manage to not drown yourself in too many little controls and sliders and get overwhelmed too quickly. So that was key. Thank you, Aron. Yeah.
By the way, guys, if you see a question in here for that applies to your department. Totally just
I
jumping in.
I can take the pandemic one. I mean, we were lucky to some extent in that we were pretty much finishing, before the pandemic really hit. The last trip we took outside the country was doing the score, recording the score in New Zealand. But I think where the pandemic did hit us was, in the box office in China, because they just started opening up, and people were not super comfortable at going back.
Yeah, they were like 40% capacity or something.
Right. So I think that's where it hit us most. I mean, our post-production was wonky. I mean, we did a lot of stuff remotely, but we were very fortunate.
I see a question about what tones did you aim for when making the soundtrack, which is cool. There is a really neat little making of thing that the composer he just showed me yesterday, and it shows all of the sheng and the gucheng and all the cool instruments they sampled. That'll come out sometime in the next week or two, so keep an eye for that. It's really inspiring. We just get to see them playing all of these traditional Chinese instruments and then processing their sound in really interesting ways that don't feel old-timey, which I'm really proud of that work. It's also neat because once you see that stuff, you can just go and listen, as I do, just go and listen to the soundtrack, and you suddenly hear all of these little details in the musical voices that are what make the score unique, and just makes the whole listening experience super rich. So I'll definitely tweet about that, but it's pretty cool. So excited to share that with you guys. And I see one.
If someone wants to know if you're going to do an art book.
Yes, we are. Yeah, Base is on board with the art book. We're just getting the process together, figuring out what we're going to focus on. It'll be a lot of, it's hard to imagine since we just rambled for 2.5 hours, but this is like so the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more beautiful art and drawings, and I think wonderful seeing some of the work of the animators in Maya drawing and posing and designing stuff. All that stuff I think will be really fun to feature, because so much of the art now is happening in that latter stage too. So it definitely will be an art book sometime. I see another question here. I like this question because it's a compliment. The story themed characters felt so well thought out and portrayed visually. How long was spent in pre-production? Well, thank you. We spent about 2 years in pre-production, and it was a very interesting and rare gift in the sense that we had a small storyboard team in LA, editorial, art department, and we worked, and that was financed by Base. And so we worked on the movie that we all believed in, a little bit, not unsupervised, but essentially supervised by, wise people like Aron. And I think what that allowed us to do is really shape a story that was driven by the sort of personal inspiration we had and by a lot of authentic details that our crew gave to us. And I think that would have been a little harder to do with a ton more big studio oversight at that early stage. So I think we kind of found the soul of the movie. And then by the time we were sharing it with Sony, they could just see it. They watched the animatic and like, what a beautiful story. And I think even to this day, personally, there are so many things about the film I think that will be rewarding on a second and the third watch. And that's a testament to how much thought people put into the characters, the fact that we never wasted a single shot in the movie. Every shot has a purpose, everything adds to the next. And for some people in the first watch, they'll see similarities to the Aladdin story they know, or they'll see similarities to characters they know. And as I think over time, people are going to really grow to understand all the layers in the movie, which I think that is also a testament to being able to see through on an initial vision and not change the basic bones of the movie 6 times over 2 years, which is often what happens at a big studio. So I think that in the long term for the life of the movie was really a bit of a gift, even though it was pretty hard, especially hard on Aron since he had to wrangle all of us children. Any other ones? stood out. How long did it take to come up with Long and Din's different personality throughout the production? That's a good question. I think the real epiphany from the very beginning was we knew that we wanted, we had the Stephen Chow character, sort of like Shaolin Soccer or even King of Comedy, this crazy optimist for Din. We loved that idea, and we felt like that was kind of the spine of the movie. And setting that against a version of the genie who's so flawed and not a good person, basically, was like the big thing that we loved. We loved that idea. And I think two things happened that really shaped that character. One, Josh and Rad in the story phase just intuitively were able to push that character in a really, really funny direction where, like, personally, I'm not the best at thinking of how a total asshole would behave. Like I run into a ceiling, but I could always count on Josh and Rad to be like, well, if it was me, I would just push the lady off the bus. And I'm like, that's amazing, do that, oh my God. So in some way they brought this this charming asshole to him. We looked a lot at, if you guys know Alec Baldwin's character from 30 Rock, who's this, and that was the magic, I think, that came when we hit animation, which was that character can also be super unlikable. And so when we worked with the animators, they not only wanted to have that, they wanted the asshole, but they wanted the charming asshole. The charming's a really important part in that equation. And so they were really excited to bring a level of energy and salesmanship and kind of charisma to what is a very selfish character. And so we were looking at references, like if you guys have ever seen, I forget the actress name, but the Music Man is like this con artist who does a musical about it. Yeah, who's the actor?
Robert Preston.
Robert Preston. It's like a kind of a grifter who comes to a small town and charms everybody. And so the combination of that kind of charisma that animation brought and a kind of likability with this very sort of selfish, funny character really gave us something unique. And that's I think the type of character, the complexity that takes a long time to get there. It takes a lot of different smart people chipping in their personalities.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So what did you learn from the making of this film that you're taking to your current K-pop film as a director, as well as a scriptwriter for the sequel?
Gosh, too many things to name, so many things. I think the one lesson that two lessons. One, if you're going to direct a film, you really, really need to love it and believe in what it's about, because it's too hard. Otherwise, it's not worth it. Don't do it if you don't really care about the film, because that's what keeps you going when it's really hard, but you have a real passion for it. And the second thing is, it is 45% idea and 55%, maybe not even, maybe 30% idea and 70% people. The people are the project in animation. The team is inseparable from the final product. And so I think a big thing that I've learned is, more than anything, what will determine the films I make and the projects I make are the people that I'll get to work with. Because if you have great people, not only will you enjoy the journey, but you will make something much smarter and better than you would ever have done by yourself. So that in a weird way makes some of your choices simpler going.
Awesome, thank you. So I think we can probably end it on that note. Sounds pretty good.
Thanks.
Just want to say
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ben, for making this happen. Thanks to everybody for participating and for joining us, and for the amazing team whom I miss each of you a lot, and very nice to see your faces.
Yeah, miss all of you except for Arthur.
Arthur, yeah, Arthur. Wait 1 sec. I want to say a few things before we go. Well, Arthur, his electricity went out apparently, so he wanted to say goodbye to everyone.
Oh, no.
We're going to post this video on our social and YouTube in a few weeks, so be sure to follow Gallery Nucleus on Instagram, or go to our website to sign up for our newsletter. If you're in LA, come check out the select pieces of concept art in the gallery right now. And that will be up till June 27th. If you can't come in person, check it out on our website. There's just a lot of the concept art is just on our website right now. We also have exclusive Wish Dragon prints and enamel pins right there. Yep.
Can we buy these at Nucleus? Can you
I ordered them right now. I did order them. They're not here yet. But once we get them, we're definitely going to be able to, at some point, to order them from Nucleus. But right now, it's just pins and prints. But I ordered those and like other vinyl toys and other cute plushie from China.
They're actually really well done.
And yeah, and of course, tell your friends to watch Wish Dragon. Watch Wish Dragon again yourself. And yeah, with that, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, my friends. Miss you all.